Mr. President, for months, the American people have been gripped by the chaotic sideshow surrounding President Trump. It seems like every day another shoe drops on the Russia investigation, another White House staffer is fired, and President Trump tweets something that upends the government and causes our allies to move even further away from us. Despite all this commotion and all the drama and all the disorganization, there is one thing that Trump and the Republicans in Congress have carried out since day one with complete precision. They've carried out a comprehensive, all-out assault on American workers. Day by day, week by week, month by month, President Trump and congressional Republicans have acted to undermine the safety and economic security of hardworking Americans. Just observe what they've done. On December 8th, President Trump nominated Andrew Puzder, who was then CEO of fast food giants Hardee's and Carl Jr.'s, to lead the Department of Labor. That's right, his first major announcement affecting workers was to nominate a man who made his fortune on the backs of hardworking Americans to the top position in government charged with protecting American workers. On February 1st, just days after he was inaugurated, President Trump delayed a rule protecting workers from workplace exposure to a lethal cancer-causing substance called beryllium. On February 3rd, President Trump stood with big bank CEOs to announce an executive order to make it easier for investment advisors to cheat hardworking Americans out of $17 billion a year in retirement savings. On March 1st, the Trump administration delayed the rule protecting workers from lethal cancer-causing beryllium a second time. On March 6th, congressional Republicans followed the directive of big business lobbyists and voted to make it easier for government contractors to steal wages from their employees. On March 16th, President Trump released his budget blueprint proposing to slash funding for the Labor Department, whose job is to stand up for American workers, slash it by 21%. On March 22nd, congressional Republicans voted to make it easier for employers to hide injuries and deaths that their workers suffer on the job. On March 24th, the Trump administration delayed a rule that required mine operators to conduct safety inspections and tell miners about any hazardous conditions they discovered before the workers go into the mines. On March 30th, congressional Republicans voted to block cities from offering retirement accounts to more than 2 million employees who don't have access to a retirement account at work. On April 4th, President Trump delayed the rule preventing investment advisors from cheating hardworking Americans out of their retirement savings. This 60-day delay alone cost Americans an estimated $3.7 billion. On April 6th, the Trump administration delayed a rule protecting construction workers from deadly silica poisoning. On May 3rd, Republicans in Congress voted to keep state governments from offering retirement accounts to employees who don't have access to accounts at work, yanking access away from 15 million Americans. On May 23rd, President Trump called for massive budget cuts at the Department of Labor, including the complete elimination of worker safety training programs, programs for older workers, and funding for workers with disabilities. And on June 23rd, President Trump proposed exempting the construction and shipbuilding industries from the rule to protect workers from lethal cancer-causing beryllium, a move that could prove fatal to workers in these industries. That's a pretty despicable record. Despicable, but consistent. Workers get slammed over and over and over. And today, Senator McConnell has brought us down to the floor to sock it to American workers one more time before he sends us home for summer recess. Today, we are voting on the nomination of Marvin Kaplan to serve on the National Labor Relations Board. Now, pause here for just a second. The NLRB is probably the most important independent federal agency that you have never heard of. They are responsible for protecting the legal rights of workers to come together and bargain with their bosses for higher wages and better working conditions. You know, starting a union is not easy. Large employers fight union organizing campaigns tooth and nail. They hire armies of union-busting lawyers to run smear campaigns against the unions or to delay or kill organizing efforts. And that's why the NLRB is so very important. To serve as a referee that ensures employers play by the rules and workers get a chance to exercise their legal rights. Now, it's the NLRB's job to stand up for workers like the nearly 4,000 workers at the Nissan plant in Canton, Mississippi, who, beginning tomorrow, will vote on whether to elect a union to represent them. And that's what the NLRB has traditionally done. Stood up for workers. Just last week, they filed a complaint against Nissan, alleging that the corporation has violated the law by running a union-busting drive, warning workers that they would lose wages and benefits if they took the step of joining a union. It's also the NLRB's job to do the routine but important work of overseeing the elections. You know, just last month, the NLRB conducted a secret ballot election at Cooley Dickinson Hospital in Northampton, Massachusetts, where nearly 300 service workers elected to be represented by SEIU 1199. With a Republican Congress and president determined to deliver the knockout blow to the middle class, hardworking Americans need an NLRB that's on their side. President Trump's nominee to the NLRB, Marvin Kaplan, has no experience practicing labor law, but we actually know where he stands on protecting workers. As a Republican House staffer, here's what he's done. He spent years actively working to strip workers of their right to organize under the law. He spent years working to overturn rulings by the NLRB that would protect workers' rights. He worked on legislation to delay union elections by at least 35 days, giving employers and their armies of lawyers and lobbyists more time to fight off organizing efforts. He worked on legislation to make some workers ineligible to join unions at their workplaces. He even fought efforts to ensure that Americans get paid the overtime that they deserve. So, after 8 months, the Republicans are about to go on vacation, but not before they jam the NLRB with a new anti-worker nominee. The biggest problem in Washington is that this place works great for giant employers and for giant corporations with armies of lawyers and lobbyists. But workers and their families just get ignored. President Trump doesn't seem to have any problem turning his back on millions of hardworking people, but that's not what we're here for. I'll be voting against Marvin Kaplan, and I urge my colleagues to do the same.